Well, welcome to our worship service today. I am David Libby. I'm the pastor at St. John's Christian Church, and I'm here at the house I grew up in. We're right now moving my parents, and so they're going to be moving up to Gresham. So I'm in Klamath Falls right now, but by the time you're seeing this, I'm back in Portland, and they are as well. And so we want to welcome you to this service, a joint service between St. John's Christian Church and St. John's Wesleyan Church. We've got an amazing message for you from Stephen Dilworth and Micah McGuire, and we think a special guest. So stay tuned for that, and welcome, join us for worship today.
How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing loss! The Father turns His face away, as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon a cross, my sin upon His shoulders. Ashamed, I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held Him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, His death and resurrection. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: His wounds have paid my ransom. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: His wounds have paid my ransom. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see His wounds, His hands, His feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. his body bound and drenched in tears. They laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Messiah still and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God. And on the third, at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, trample down, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God. He shall return in robes of white. The blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints. My gaze transfix on Jesus' face. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God.
We've gathered together, and now we come to the point of the service in which God wants to speak to us through his word. This morning's going to be a little bit different, but I want to challenge you to open up your hearts. I've been challenged the last 2 weeks. The tragic murder of George Floyd and our country's outcry against that. To listen. To break down my walls of defensiveness. And to truly listen. Listen to the outcry, listen to the pain, listen to the suffering of so many in our world. And so this morning, my call to us, especially as we approach this time of the service of the word, that we would have ears to hear and eyes to see. We would not be ignorant any longer, but that we would truly listen. And so just take a moment with me. just quiet our hearts and prepare yourself for God to speak to you. God, I would ask that you open up my heart, that you would open my eyes, and you would open my ears this morning to hear what you want to speak to me through your word. You receive all the glory, all the honor, God. Amen.
I'm reading out of the Complete Jewish Bible Translation today. In Micah 6:8, human being, you already know what is good. What Adonai demands of you, no more than to act justly, to love grace, and to live in purity with your God. And in Romans 12:21, do not be conquered by evil, rather conquer evil with good.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Dilworth and I am a member of St. John's Wesleyan Church, and I've been at St. John's Christian Church and preached there in the past for you guys. And today we're here with Dub from Dub's St. John's. Some of you may know he was the St. John's Parade Grand Marshal this last year. He does numerous fundraisers for schools, Roosevelt, George Middle School, a number of the elementary school. He's been engaged in the community and good works. And I reached out to Dub this last week, just in current climate and culture, and not really expecting anything back. But one of the things we want people to know is that everybody matters, and so just trying to communicate that. And then Dub called me back, and we ended up in a decent conversation. And his words just really encouraged me. It challenged me to think. It led my mind to the two verses that Janelle read. The idea of what does it look like to do justice, to walk humbly, to love kindness. And then in a midst of even for myself feeling somewhat overwhelmed, here's Dub on the phone encouraging me not to be overwhelmed by all the evil. Evil does exist, but to not be so overwhelmed at it and to make sure that we're looking at the good that is in the world and just feeling encouraged from that. So as our conversations with the leadership team went on, my suggestion was for this week's service that we just sit down and have a good conversation with Dub, and to make sure that we're listening well and we're engaging in good conversation and hopefully learning. So I guess the question for you initially, because I sent out a message to several people of color, and the new phrase that I learned this week that another pastor shared with me was siblings of color. Like we got to make sure we reach out to our siblings of color. If we really do believe we're the family, we're all in, we're all in this together, is something we've heard a lot, to really shift the conversation to say, like, these are my siblings of color. Mm-hmm. And just wanted to let you know, hey, we love you, we care about you, you matter. Thank you for what you do in the community. Mm-hmm. So what prompted you to actually call back and not just, here's another text from somebody?
Well, I think you're a friend, Stephen. All of our interactions have been like super positive for the last few years since I've been interacting with you, and I was really appreciative of you reaching out, and I felt like that could have been a group text that you were sending out to like your friends of color or whatever, but I said, let me call, because I know some of my friends who aren't people of color are kind of stressing right now about just life and what's going on in its current climate, and I wanted you to know that yes, stuff is happening and there's a lot of evil in the world, but there's more good than there is evil, like literally twice as much, at least. And even the people that are like kind of evil, they're like more good, but they're like in a circle where they can't express their good all the time, So I just wanted you to know that I appreciated you even thinking about me right now, and taking your time to, send me a text and let me know that I'm supported out here, because it was out of the blue. You didn't really know what could have been going through at the time, but that's why I called you back, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about how you feel, too, because it needs to be balanced. It needs to be a conversation, and if you really genuinely care about someone, then you want to know how they feel. And like you said, our siblings of color, or just, I don't even want to put "of" on the end of this or of that. We're just on this planet as brothers and sisters. That's it, and because some of us can, accept the photons from the sun a little bit differently, so it changes our skin color, right? Because some people have a little more melanin, some not. That doesn't change us humanity, because trust me, if you get cut up under that first couple of layers, it's all exactly the same. You got this. It's going to bleed the same color. No one is out here bleeding royal purple, or no one's bleeding, oh, better catch that, I've got golden blood. It's not that way. We all bleed the same, because we're all the same. Literally, we're only separated by just a little bit of DNA, But, yeah, we're all one.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really stood out, and I mentioned that your conversation, as well as several other conversations I had, just kind of played over in my head for days, in thinking, how do I respond to all of that? And the one thing that you stood out, and we were talking about a little bit of this, the verse 2 in Romans 12 that says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil by doing good." And I think we have to acknowledge there is evil in the world, right? We're not just like, hey, everything's wonderful, let's sit around and sing songs and eat barbecue.
Dub's barbecue.
At Dub's barbecue. But there is evil in the world. And so how, in the light of so much evil, how do you focus on good? What does that look like, maybe for you, and maybe even for people listening? What does it look like for us to...
I feel like good is a shield, right? And it's like a force field, and it kind of just, and it's an evil repeller, And so the more good you have around, the less evil you're going to have. It's kind of like you're in your garden, If you don't want weeds, plant good stuff, and the good stuff weeds out the weeds. And that's what we have to do, is just start planting more good seeds in our children, first of all, because the babies are the future, and what we teach them is what they'll perpetuate later. So recognizing and really trying to pull out the good in other people, I don't see that being a big task. Trying to just say hello or uplift someone, or if you see somebody without a smile, give them one of yours, but also you have to recognize that there is evil, that evil's working to do its job too. Evil does have a job to do, and it's to corrupt good people. It's to corrupt the good. But you got to have more good, and you got to keep spreading that good and the good word. And and I think that if you can't drown it out completely, evil can be suppressed to where it's in its shell. You know what I mean? To where it draws back because it doesn't feel comfortable in all this goodness, you know? And so that's what I think is important. Because I notice even like with bad people, you know, and bad individual, like even, you know, there's like the bully in school. If no one's giving the bully power, what happens to the bully? He eventually will turn good because he wants to be accepted too. Right? He doesn't, I mean, if nobody's going, yeah, beat him up, or ah ha ha, or and then people are like, dude, that's not right, that's wrong. And everybody's like, that's wrong, and they're going to think, oh yeah, well, I kind of want to be doing that. Hey, you know what? I can sing. You know what I'm saying? I can, you know, they'll be wanting to do more good things that, you know, the good people are doing. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I think right now that one of the challenges, I mean, obviously we know what's going on in Portland this week, is there are a lot of voices, right? Hey, do this. No, do this. No, what you should do. This is what it looks like to support this cause. No, this is what you have to do to support this cause. And there's a lot of noise right now. And so I think some people are really like, I don't know what to do. Do I sit back and just listen and say nothing, but then we're criticized for not speaking to it? Or we say words, but we don't have a full understanding. And so in that mix, even with the image of the bully and people like chanting them on, or some people saying, no, don't do that. How do we, as a society, figure out a little bit of what's the right response? How do we...
Everybody... Okay, good's not hard to recognize. And neither is evil to me. Like... the whole root of this is because people are dying. And if you can't speak up about someone getting murdered, I mean, you don't necessarily have to go out with a sign, you know, and no one's saying to get out there and do protests, because I have not been downtown to a protest, but I do good. You know, I do good for many, 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 many people. I do good for myself, which is very important. But if you don't find anything wrong with seeing somebody killed in cold blood murder, that's something that you might need to ask yourself about. And if you're making an excuse of why that person was killed, maybe that's something you need to search your soul about. You know, a lot of people you can't be upset with someone because they don't protest the way that you protest, or they don't speak out in the same way you speak out, or they don't affect change in the same way that you affect change. But you have to call my pants red because they're red. You know, that's as simple as it gets. And don't gloss over the fact that my pants are red.
Yeah.
You know, I hope you guys can get where I'm coming from on that. You know, that you have to be willing to, if you see evil, say it's evil and not make an excuse for it.
Right. I think one of the things that had been, it's burning inside of me a little bit here too. Just as we're talking to, I'm just like, this is my opinions, Dub's opinions. We're not speaking for St. John's Wesleyan Church or St. John's Christian Church or establishing policies. This is just conversation. This is just conversation. I think, like, I push that. I want to name evil, because I think sometimes even when we generalize it, we let it off the hook. Like,
Right.
man, all like, well, I don't like red, so I don't like pants. Like, all pants are like when a person is doing evil, we're kind of like, oh man, all of those people are just bad. Whatever side, right? Because some people are like, oh, well, all the police are bad. Oh, the writers are bad. Like, I really like, no, I want to start naming like that person, man or woman, that man was evil when he did this.
Right.
And we have to put names to it.
Right.
Because once it's named, it's identified, we can now respond to it. When it's just like, oh man, they're just
Well, it's kind of hard to just, okay, so there's like a structure in the United States that's built to propel a group and suppress others, okay? Now, within that structure, just because the structure's there, people have to be the one to maintain the structure. So it goes back to what you're saying. You have to like name that or name that person. But there's so much of it, it's like really hard to name that one person because it's a structure, it's a system, you know, that's alive. It's trying not to die. Like, so for me, a few days ago, the president is giving a speech in the Rose Garden. And there's people outside of the White House who are peacefully protesting. And there's, you know, nuns and there's pastors and there's just, you know, people of the cloth. And there's a church across the street that had been burned by rioters, which is stupid to me. Why would you do that? Why, you know, I think property destruction, you know, shouldn't be happening in a protest because a lot of times it's like the small mom and pop shops or people that are, you know, entrepreneurs in the community whose things are being destroyed. That being said, the president tells the guards to go out there and forcibly remove the people by tear gas, by those rubber bullets, by just, I mean, just to go take a picture. And that kind of stuff is not cool. That's something you can call out. It's hard to call out that individual when there's a system of banking that's set up that all of the managers know to do this to this group of people. It's hard to call out that one person because in the system, that guy's going to take the sacrifice. What? Yeah, we're going to fire him because he did that.
Right.
But it's like all the way up to the top. So it's very, very hard, man, to just call out a person's name, you know, and it's easier because with video, you're like, oh, Officer so-and-so did that. And, or, you know, that's a little bit easier. But when you're trying to break a system of oppression, it's super difficult to just call out one thing. And that's why there is mass protests across the globe, because now people are starting to wake up and see that it's not just Officer Mike, bad Officer Mike. It is an entire structure, and people don't want that structure anymore. And so a lot of people are upset about it and saying, oh, well, the rioters are wrong, or the protesters are wrong, or this, or what am I supposed to do about it? Because, you know, I'm just living my life. And people like to say they don't see that part, but they benefit from the structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think one of the just conversations we've been having, the idea of like, so obviously we have systems, and I do believe in systemic racism, like it's built in. You know, you mentioned earlier as we're just conversating while the sound and stuff was getting set up, redlining laws, GI Bill coming back from World War II, where black vets didn't get any of the benefit, you know, and so generational wealth, all there is systemic issues at play. And so it's like those systems have to be reformed. And I think we can even name systems as like, that's an evil system that's in play.
Let me speak to that. And okay, everybody's talking about gentrification. That's a plan that the city set up. It's a plan. Like, oh, there's a 20-year plan to move these people out of this neighborhood, right? So we're going to depress the property values. And how do we do that? I don't know. Boom, there's all these drugs in there. Now, people that have owned homes for generations, because grandson Mike was on the corner over there, they are actually going, this happened in my neighborhood. They took that kid's grandmother's house. Like literally, oh no, that's a crack house. Boom, took the house. They just like took people's property, right? And then sold it, right? They took all the people that were, after the drugs got dumped in there, right? And then took all the people that were supposed to come back and be inheriting this generational wealth, put them all in jail for 20 years. And 20 plus for the same thing, you know, like this drug over here is the same as this drug, but it's a different consistency. So this one gets 30 years where this one gets 30 days, right? Kind of like where you're talking about, hey, I did this burglary, I'm running through the house, there's a gun pointed at me. What's going to happen? You know, I didn't know. I could have got shot, but I didn't. I got took to my mom's house, and now I got probation and a lower charge, you know. But part of that system and that structure is like really, really built by the powers that be, man. And it's not, again, back to just one person, but gentrification and all these things are just, it's like a setup for you to fail. But if you're not being affected by that, then you would never see that. It'll just look like, oh, they're making such bad decisions. you know, or that doesn't happen to everybody. That can't, but it's like, it does. It's real.
Yeah. You were talking earlier as we were setting up to the idea of like, how can you expect someone to know better if all they've grown up is this? That's their only. You know, this is my view. This is my expectation, and not having exposure to other things.
You can't know. You know, we were talking about this. You know, this curtain right here. This, you know, you can't know, and people can't expect everybody to know, because that's not their reality. You know, like you're saying, your reality is, I live in Corbett, Oregon, and the population is 99% white, and I've never had a bad day other than my tire got flat. You know, I didn't catch any fish when I was going to the stream. You know, I'm not saying that about people that live in Corbett. I'm just trying to say that in this situation over here, you're removed from the inner city in Portland, right? So that's just like 90% of the time, you're not even going to worry about what's going on in Portland. And I don't know, maybe you only watch Channel 6 news. Crime Stoppers is your favorite thing. And on there is what you see me all the time. Then you might start to think and have a perception that, oh my God, there's a lot of black people are always, like I see one every night. I mean, I could see that. Even if you didn't see that image all the time and your life was just great. Never been pulled over by the police ever. You've got the job that you went to seek for because Uncle Mike worked at the factory and I was already in. Or my family's longshoremen and of course, yeah, I'm going to work on the docks. Duh, who's not? You know what I mean? Yeah. You're going to just have a different experience. And no one should be upset with you for not seeing that you're benefiting from the system. Because you're in the system, you don't know. It's like being in the Matrix and not knowing that you're in the Matrix because no one's trying to say, well, who built the Matrix? It's just like it is what it is, and I get that. So I am not upset for people not knowing what they don't know. The thing is, once you're enlightened to what you don't know, and you still want to have your blindfold on, then that's where we need to take and review our moral compass, and see and don't try to change the world, but by changing yourself, you're changing the world.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I was talking to Pastor Christy, and I'm like, if you do one thing that makes a person's life better, if you've affected one person, then you've done your job as a person that is given the word of God.
I have a hero complex. Person. That's not enough for me.
I hear you, but if it okay, hey, what about the coronavirus? Just to say for that, right? If one person gets coronavirus, they might spread it to this one, and they might spread it to that one. It goes the same for goodness. It goes the same for goodness. If one person affects one person, that person may affect two.
Yeah.
And it's more than likely that they will. Because once you have a really good interaction with somebody, you want to share that.
Yeah. I like that. How do we be contagiously good?
Be contagiously good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be contagiously good. That's a really good saying right there.
Yeah, I'm going to coin that.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, one of the pieces in it, you mentioned the blindfold idea, and I think there are some who are content with the blindfold, some maybe that they peeked out and they put it back on, but... Well,
it's very difficult to take the blindfold off.
Yeah, and so my thought, even in this idea that we need to have good listening sessions with people in our community, and specifically people of color and outside of our own, if this is our only awareness, we need to get out of our awareness and have conversations with people outside of...
It's hard, man.
It is.
If your awareness is great.
I get that. I'm also an extrovert. I'll walk into a room where I don't know anybody. I'm going to walk out with 10 friends. So
right.
For me, it's I get I'm also different here than and be harder for different pieces. But I think in this idea of what does it mean to be a good active listener right now is being brave enough maybe to peek your blindfold up. And I mentioned earlier this morning I got a message from somebody who legitimately had a question and kind of start out, it was a little timid, but hey, can I ask you a question? I was like, sure, and kind of expecting, whatever. And it was really, it's like, I'm not trying to push back at all, but I don't understand. Here's the context of my upbringing. It's limited me and I don't know. And asking questions with this genuine desire to be made aware, to learn something, maybe see something from a perspective they didn't have before. And in my mind, that's the bravest thing I've seen this week.
Sure. And that's where it starts. Just asking that question. What can I learn? How can my mind, how can my world be opened up? And you don't got to do it I mean, right now it's like an explosion all over the world, but you can take it as much as you can take it. You know, step outside of your boundaries just a little bit to get a different perspective. We were talking about that, you know. We're on the same stage. We're both, you know, speaking to each other, but we have just a slightly different point of view physically of where I'm looking at and where you're looking at. But we're still in the same space.
Right.
You know what I mean? Switch chairs sometimes with a person. If not physically, you know, metaphorically.
Yeah.
Right? And just so that you can start to see the world, because you would be amazed at maybe what you see from just a shift, a paradigm shift, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's huge, I think.
I can't change your upbringing. I can't change what you know, right? But you didn't know what you knew until you learned it. And so if you, for me, every day I seek to learn something or just to experience something different. I have a saying that life is freestyle. And I say that because you just never know. You can plan your whole day out like, you know, with a day planner. I'm at 8 o'clock, I'm eating granola. At 9 o'clock, I'm working out. 10 o'clock, I'm doing, and it hardly ever goes just like that. Something happens, and, you know, phone call, you know, just the most random things happen in your day, which is life is freestyle. So if you just take it and take it a day at a time and just try to just look at things in a little bit different way than you have. And I know it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but we're a highly adaptive species with like a very complex brain. And we, especially people of the church, people that are of faith, should really practice more love, practice more empathy, practice more compassion, practice being a better neighbor, practice loving your fellow human being. I think that is really the important thing, because really, love thy neighbor.
Yeah.
That is like the tenet there. It's to love thy neighbor. Jesus got down and washed feet. Right? Jesus washed feet. That's the Most High, right?
Yeah.
If he can do it,
Yeah.
if he can take in a prostitute and see the good in her, are you above him? Are you? Judge not. Judge not.
Yeah.
Don't judge. Learn, experience, explore, open up.
Yeah. I love the word you use, practice, because my wife and I talk about that a lot. Like sometimes we get so like, well, I have to get it right first. I have to figure out what perfect love is. Mm-hmm. I have to figure out what practice, like it comes with an expectation of like, you might mess it up.
No one's perfect.
That's why we practice in it.
Yeah.
Right?
And no one's perfect. We can be excellent. See, there's a difference. Like, no one's perfect at anything. But we can all be excellent. And we can practice excellence. Right? It's hard to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect. There's nothing you can do perfect. Because you can't draw like freehand straight lines. You know? You can't do that. There's actually nothing on the planet that is just like bricks, you know, just rigidly straight like that. Everything's kind of like flowy, you know?
Yeah.
And everything's got shapes and curves and everything, but it's all infinitely excellent,
Right.
you know?
They actually say that in art. Not that I'm a great artist, but they said if you make, like, if you're painting something and you make it too perfect, it looks fake.
Yeah.
It's not genuine. It's not authentic. And when it becomes perfect, like, it actually even loses some of its beauty. But the little blemishes or tweaks that add
Small.
character,
Right.
that adds beauty to it.
Right.
Yeah,
Depth.
that's good. I want to chat one more thing before we wrap up, because I don't want to make people listen too long of a thing, and I don't know where we are timeline. But we talked a little bit about the idea of vilifying whole people groups. Right.
Yeah.
So there's systems that are bad, and you say, like, oh, well, riots are bad because some bad things are happening, right? But are all protesters bad because of a few?
No, because
you know,
there's
or,
people in there.
And policing right now, I would say systemically there's issues within law enforcement, but at the same time, this is my tension. I work in the community, I work in partnership with the police. I know some really good police officers.
there are,
And
totally.
it's hard for me because the ones I get to work with on a regular basis, like, they're all the good ones, right? Like, I mean, they're the ones engaged in the community collaborative conversations.
Yeah.
They're showing up on their day offs to serve in parks. They're doing these things. And so my reality even is like I can't vilify all of law enforcement because
can't.
I know these officers that are so good. And you can't vilify all of these protesters because I know people are outraged and they're angry and they should be angry. And so, but it's so easy to polarize and to try to vilify an entire people group or an entire race. So how do we...
People say the police are bad because the police are the ones doing that particular killings, right? And that's general police, boom, you know. However, there's like those guys, right, that you're talking about, and the majority of police, I'm sure, are good people, and they're just, you know, in lineage because their families were like in law enforcement for years or in the military, come out of the military, and that's a job that they gravitate to, you know. And most people are inherently good. But then there's like these bad apple ones, right? It's up to the good ones to call the bad ones out. And a lot of times in that system, it's loyalty to the code keeps these guys
not
safe.
just loyalty, but fear of punitive things. If you speak out,
Exactly.
like,
So
there's-
that's where it needs to change at.
Yeah,
Because they know this is happening, and they know this guy is bad, and they know this, not just this guy, this group of dudes are bad, right? So it's hard to, as when there's like huge things going on, not to say that group of stuff is bad, especially when you're like, keep seeing that over and over. It's just like, if you keep seeing a black guy on the news, and then it's just like a different one, it's only one, right? But you're seeing a different one all the time, it will make you make a stereotype,
right.
right? And you know, all these thousands and thousands and thousands of protesters, there's, you know, 25 of them are breaking windows, but it looks bad on the whole group, you know? But there's like somebody in that group like, hey, don't do that. But you don't never necessarily see that because, just like we were talking earlier, you got this big group of wonderful, let's say you got this big vat of milk, and then, you know, you don't notice anything about the milk, but if there's like a leaf falls in the milk, right? Then that leaf is going to super stand out, right? And that's what's happening when you see the bad protesters.
Yeah.
They're like, all the protesters are all the milk. And then there's a leaf that fell in the milk. And so it stands way, way out, right? So, and that's just, I don't know. What can you do not to vilify whole groups? I guess to still try to treat each person as an individual and be open to that. I may be a part of this group, but I'm still an individual, you know, and my ideologies are not the same as, you know, maybe the leaf in that group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's too, like, one of the pieces, like, on both sides. Like, I want to point, you know, how do you overcome evil? You overcome it with good. So I want to highlight, like, man, there was a protest, but here was a protester that was doing good. The ones where they're protecting someone who's falling down. The you know, like, there's good and good on the other side. And like let's focus and highlight. I mean, I don't want to, like, again, like, well, let's not talk about the bad things, because I think we have to call it out. But I want that contagious goodness.
People need to realize what they're protesting for. It's, you know, it's not that the protesters are acting out in a bad way. People will, pressure will bust a lead pipe. So imagine what it does to the human brain, okay? The world is under pressure. So taking an account of what action caused the reaction.
Yeah.
Right? What actions are causing people by the millions to come out and say this is wrong? It's the whole world calling out the evil.
Yeah, I mean, all sorts of news from the rest of the countries are like...
It's the world calling out the evil of the system that's in place to protect that leaf that's in the milk.
Yeah.
Get the leaf out of the milk. Scoop a little bit extra around it because some might have seeped in there. Get the evil out of the milk. That's what's happening, man. And until people can go, don't get it confused. Don't make an excuse, because that's what's happened to, like, even with Colin Kaepernick. He's kneeling during the national anthem because he's trying to call attention to, hey, there's a leaf in the milk, right? He's an American, man. We're all Americans. We love the country. But I can't tell you because you won't see it if I'm just playing football. You won't hear my voice that way. But if I do it at a chance when now you see me and I tell you, it's not about the flag, because we love America, even though it's sometimes not kind, because of not everybody's trying to be bad to you, but there's some leaves in the milk that need to come out. And the people there's good people in bad systems, right? And so these good people need to, and they know when the system is bad, because just like you're saying, it's the loyalty and it's defending the code, and they're afraid of repercussions. Change the repercussions, man. Change the rules so that they're fair. So that they're fair to everyone. And you don't have to be worrying about protecting this guy because it's fair. And we don't have leaves in the milk.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's good. Dub and I can talk forever.
We could.
And Josh is telling me to wrap it up and give me the cut sign. No, he's been good.
I don't think that thing has a hard drive attached.
What we do want to encourage you guys to do is keep having conversations.
Yes.
If you come across something, or even something we said, like, oh, I don't agree with that, don't just attack, but, like, help me understand. Like, have conversations with the desire for deeper, greater understanding.
Yeah.
And maybe step out of your realm. I'm available for conversations, and as well as others.
I'm available.
So, Dub, I'm going to do a shameless plug. Dub, where can people find you cooking right now?
Okay, so you can get food at 8727 North Lombard. That's at Marie's, Dub's at Marie's. We're going to be launching a new location. It's going to be Dub's Famous Fried Chicken over in the Mississippi District here pretty soon. And but you can reach me on all the social media platforms at Dub St. John's. That's at DUBSTJOHNS, and on Instagram, on Facebook, Twitter, and if you DM me, we can have conversations. I love to talk, and even more importantly, I love to listen. So if you just want to pick my brain, or you just need to get something off your chest, I'm free. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe we'll have to have a little conversation. Pastor Josh really believes that Dub's brisket is the best thing, and I'm going to tell you that it's in the catfish basket. All right, so maybe a little poll. You can respond if you've had Dubs before, like brisket versus catfish. Which one's better? I don't know, but keep talking with people. Keep listening. We need reconciliation between people, and we need reforms of systems. And that's what's going to change the world. So
vote.
And vote.
And vote.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We've gathered together this morning. We've heard the word through somewhat an unconventional way, but a word that I think is very needed right now. Now we come to the point of the table. This response that God asks us to, or God invites us into. And so, if you have a moment, go and grab some bread, some juice. And in this response time, I want you to listen. I want you to really listen. Listen to the cries of the world. Listen to the cries of the oppressed. We heard from Dub, his heart, what he's experienced. But think about our brothers and sisters of color right now. And think about what they're experiencing. As Jesus came to the cross, it was his heart, it was his compassion that drew him there. It was his cries for an unjust world. We've always lived in a world that is not just, and God calls us to righteousness and to justice, to go out of our ways, to listen, and to make things right. And so through the Holy Spirit, he empowers us to bring about his justice and his righteousness in this world. And so this morning, as we take the bread, as we take the juice, remember that Christ suffered unjustly, and that he invites us into that as well. And so each week, as we receive these elements, we're invited, not just in the life that follows, but we are invited in the death and the suffering and the pain. And so I want you to imagine, as you take the bread this morning, imagine the pain of those who have suffered, who've been persecuted unjustly. And may you feel that this morning. And so as we take, remember the pain of Jesus' body that was broken for us. Take, eat, and remember the pain. Remember the blood that was spilled out. And so this morning, as we take the juice, we again reflect on the pain and the suffering that Christ endured and that many others today wrongfully endure. And so we take and we drink and we remember that pain and that suffering this morning. Take the juice. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for loving us. And God, I thank you for suffering justly for us. And God, may we never think of ourselves more highly than we ought to. But God, may we humbly come before you. May we humbly go about our lives, looking for opportunities to show your love to all of humanity, God. Be lifted up, be glorified. Amen.
Thank you for joining us. That was such a great service, such a great message that we all got to share together. We hope you'll continue to serve with the B-Town ministry, where the Because People Matter ministry, where they're collecting food to give out to the houseless folks among us. And we hope you'll join us for the upcoming events we have. We're hoping to, assuming that phase 1 happens in Multnomah County by the end of the month, we're hoping to have a picnic in the park at some point. And so we will have more information for you about that as it comes closer to time, but we hope you'll join us for that. In the meantime, we hope that you have a great week, and thank you so much for joining us today.